Hey there! Today I am going to be doing my April wrap-up. I read one 3-star book, one 4-star book, and two 5-star books. So I had a good reading month, even though I only read 4 books. So the first book I read in April was A River in Darkness by Masaji Ishikawa. It is one man's escape from North Korea. So this is a nonfiction written by a man who grew up and lived a lot of his adult life in North Korea. He's originally from Japan, but his father decided to move to North Korea because there was a promise of like a great life, and he thought he would be able to provide better for his family in North Korea. They were originally Korean immigrants to Japan, so he thought going back to like his motherland, like his homeland, would help him be able to provide better for his family. And I mean, anyone who knows anything about North Korea, obviously, you know that's not really how it went down. What ended up, like, the book is basically following his struggles. You know, they lived in, basically lived in a hovel. They weren't allowed to do the good jobs because as, I forget what they called them in the book. I read this at the very beginning of the month, so, like, I finished it at the very beginning of the month, so I don't really remember the exact terms. But, like, as people that moved to North Korea from Japan, they were actually considered, like, the bottom rung of society. So they were considered criminals immediately. Like, they weren't allowed to do the good jobs that, like, gave you higher rations. Like, their rations were smaller just because they were Japanese. And anything they did have coming from Japan was basically taken from them. Oh, I don't know. It was horrible. Like, it was a rough go. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, as I was reading it, I was just kind of wishing that it was fiction. And to think that someone really lived through this was really hard for me. Like, he struggled with depression, attempted suicide, like he tried to kill himself, and then just what it took for him to get back to Japan, like to get out of North Korea and back to Japan was just, I can't even imagine. Like, I'm sitting here in my comfy little house and like the things that we worry, like the things that I worry about on a daily basis, I don't want to like overgeneralize, but the things that I worry about on a daily basis are nothing compared to what this poor man lived through, like, and his family went through. And it was just, oh, this was one of my 5-star books. And I don't really like reading nonfiction that's based on people's lives because I've heard other booktubers say it. Like, I don't want to say like, oh, your life is worth 3 stars or whatever, but really, honestly, truly, this was a 5-star book for me. I went through all the emotions reading it. Like, it's a translation, so sometimes, like, the writing wasn't fabulous, but it gave me all the emotions. I loved it. I recommend it. It's heart-wrenching, but it's a great look into what North Korea has been like, you know, over the past almost, like, little more than half a century. I think it started in, I want to say the 40s or 50s, I think. But yeah, it was a good look into it. The next thing I read in April was The Beauty of Darkness by Mary E. Pearson. I was like 2/3, I can't even really say that I read this in April. I just finished it in April. I was like 2/3 of the way through, and I had put it on the back burner for some other stuff, and then in April I came back and I finished it. Like, that's all I can really say. I love this series. In general, I feel like people just have good things to say about this series. There are some people that are like, oh, it's just whatever, but I loved this whole series. I really liked the Kiss of Deception. It was basically exactly what it was marketed as. This girl is on the run. There's two guys chasing her. One is the prince she ran away from marrying, and another is an assassin that was sent to kill her. And that's what you get, and it's fantastic. And then I read the second and third books, and I was just like, oh, this is what I want from a fantasy. And yeah, I can't really say much about it. It's the third book in a series, like the third and final book in a series, but I love this book. I love this series. I wish it was longer. And I'm just really proud of myself for reading this because I'm really bad at finishing series, and I finished a series. This was my other 5-star book. So why did I start with the 5 stars? I don't really know. But yeah, 5 stars. The whole series, I believe, got 5 stars. The first one might have gotten 4 stars. I don't actually remember, but this is definitely 5 stars. And the series overall, I would give 5 stars. I love it. If you haven't read it, you should read it, but I feel like everyone already has read it. So yeah, 5 stars. And the other 2 books that I read were ebooks from the library, and I already returned them, so I can't even really show them to you on my Kindle or anything, so I'm just going to talk about them. The first one was Grace and Fury by Tracy Banghart? Tracy Banghart? I think it was Tracy Banghart. I probably should have written it down, but that's very on brand for me. I never prepare for anything, and even if I prepare for something, it's not all the way. Like, I can never be 100% prepared for anything in life. That's just me. Yeah. Grace and Fury, I think it's Tracy Banghart. 3-star book for me. It was really... So, I feel the same way about that one as I felt about The Winter's Crime. Nope, sorry, I'm reading The Winter's Crime right now. But The Winter's Curse, that I read in March. I really enjoyed it while I was reading it. And like the story of it, I feel like would be a 4-star, but the book overall, after I sat on it for a couple days, was a 3-star. I think it was a pretty solid 3-star. I liked it. I enjoyed it. And I think if you like that type of book, you should definitely read it. But it's not going to be for everyone. There were definitely issues with it. There were things that I really liked, things that I didn't like. So basically the story is about 2 sisters. One is raised up to be a Grace, which pretty much I feel like is like they're trying, it's like the pinnacle of perfection for a woman. And every year they, like every town or whatever, picks one Grace to send to the palace, and the heir and the king both get to choose 3, or I don't know if it's necessarily set 3, but the heir picks 3 of these girls to stay and like serve him and like be his ladies or whatever. And so one of the sisters is one of these girls. She's been trained up to be a Grace her entire life, and her younger sister is her handmaiden. In the society, women are basically there to serve men. They are not allowed to read. They're not allowed to write. They are not allowed to do like anything like that. And what ends up happening is these 2 girls get caught with a book. And when they get caught, the older sister is the one that's holding the book. So she ends up getting arrested. This is getting really wordy, so I'm just going to cut to the chase. The older sister ends up basically on this prison island, and the younger sister ends up serving the prince. I don't know really how to give you the exact synopsis of this book, but it was really good. The main story is how the 2 sisters cope with the situations that they've been put in. And it is going to be, there is like another book coming out in July this year. So it is a series. I don't know how many books it's going to be, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. Seeing 2 girls that were put into situations that are basically the exact opposite of what they've been well, I mean, the younger sister was supposed to be a handmaid and she wasn't supposed to be in jail. But basically seeing these 2 girls in situations that they would never have pictured themselves in and following them through how they handle it. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. It was fine. It was 3 stars. I liked it. I've talked about this book for way too long without actually giving you any details about it. I am terrible at summarizing books, apparently, so we're just gonna move on. The last book that I finished in the month of April, technically I finished it like the second day of May, but we're not going to talk about that, is 99% Mine by Sally Thorne. I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I will say the same thing as everyone else. I didn't enjoy it as much as The Hating Game. The Hating Game got 5 stars. But I did really like it. I really enjoyed Tom as a character. Not so much Darcy. She was a little strong for me. I think Sally Thorne tried too hard to make her into like this badass lady, and it just kind of got jumbled. She was like mean, but she was a softie, and I think the two just didn't like mesh as well as they were supposed to, if that makes sense. But yeah, I did enjoy it. Everybody and their mother was talking about this book back in like January, February when it came out. Like everybody was talking about it. Everybody read it. And I was on the waiting list from my library for almost that long. So that's how long it took me to get it. So yeah, in case you noticed, there was a book I said I was going to read from my TBR jar in April, and I didn't. It's because as soon as I was going to pick this up, I got 99% Mine from my library, and so I was like, I waited this long to read it. I don't want to have to like wait again. So I ended up making that my priority over this because this was just a TBR jar pick. That being said, I have made the executive decision to just add this to my May TBR because I don't want to get all screwed up on the jar right away. So we're going to add this to my May TBR. Hopefully I'll be able to read this in May, and we're just going to put that over there and pretend it didn't happen. Yeah, so that is my April wrap up. It got a little long. I was a little wordy with it, I think. But yeah, to summarize, I read A River in Darkness, which was 5 stars. I read The Beauty of Darkness, which was 5 stars. I read Grace and Fury, which was 3 stars. And 99% Mine, which was 4 stars. Really good, not as good as The Hating Game. So yeah, that was my April, and I will see you again in May. All right, bye.